Alright guys, BLM here, back with a new video, and in this video we're back with what has become a yearly tradition for the channel, where sometime before the airing of the fall season of Survivor, I do like to do a kind of check-in on my thoughts on the current state of Survivor, along with doing a cast reaction to the casts of the upcoming seasons, so where here I'll be doing a cast reaction for seasons 47-48, and this is going to be a weird one, where typically I like to wait for the entire cast of both these seasons to be leaked. However, this ends up being a bit of a strange off-season here, where while we do have the majority of the 47 cast, it feels like a lot of that came from the fact that we got the trailer for it, while the 48 cast is largely unknown even at this point. At the point of this recording, we don't even know half of the cast, and in general, it does seem like it's becoming more difficult to figure out these casts. Also, beyond that, these seasons filmed a bit later than the seasons would typically film in previous years, to where, because that, we're now in mid-August with still no full 48 cast, and again, I've been waiting for the 48 cast to make this video, but we're at the point now where if I don't make this video now, then the 47 cast is just going to officially release. I just felt like, screw it, let's just do this video now, simply as a formality, straight up, as again, I do want to still keep this yearly update on what I'm currently thinking about the current state of the show. By the way, I'm going to structure this video is first I will start talking about the 47 cast, then talk about the 48 cast, and follow that up with talking about more general topics about the current state of the show, and then eventually end with talking about updated thoughts on Survivor 50. But again, we'll still be running through the 47 and 48 casts that we know, so let's jump into it. Now for 47, again, we know 17 of the 18 contestants. For the other one, again, we know their name, so that's something. In general, this is a cast that I'm actually pretty excited to see. I think there's a couple notable names that we'll talk about. It feels like an older cast than something like Survivor 45, which was relatively young. I mean, more in line 46, which if that's the case, and that's obviously a good thing. And while we haven't gotten much depth from any of the trailers or the initial sneak peek, this is a season I am kind of excited to see play out. Now, and again, we are already starting to get promos for this season that involve actual confessional footage. I mean, the season does start airing about a month from now, which is actually kind of mind-blowing that we're that close, but it is kind of weird to see all these commercials before the official cast release. But the way I do want to talk through this cast is, again, similar to how I've done it in previous seasons, of kind of running through the initial sneak peek that we got. Again, the sneak peek that we got at the end of 46, which I will say was a very generic trailer. I mean, it kind of had to be, considering actually at the time of that preview coming out, the season had actually just started filming. I believe they were within the first week of filming, which is actually kind of insane. I mean, we've had that in the past with something like 43, where 43 was not finished filming by the time it was previewed in 42. And through that, again, this trailer ends up being somewhat generic, but also I don't feel like there's really much to glean on this. Obviously, you can tell like some people that they probably do like through the quality of confessional they got here, but obviously there's nothing to really gauge here in terms of like winner prospects, as even they didn't know when they edited this together. But really, again, a lot of these confessionals end up being super generic. We open up the trailer with Jeff talking about how every Survivor story starts with an empty page, and it's up to the players to make their mark, even though, again, the game is so convoluted at this point that is it? But again, we get a lot of confessionals that are super generic, give us nothing about them as people, outside of just saying that they want to play the game. Like, first up, we see Gabe instantly say that he wants to be the first on the Mount Rushmore of the new era. But again, Gabe clearly comes off as someone that's a super fan. I feel he's probably someone that's going to be playing very hard. In terms of how he's presented in the trailer, it kind of gives me Drew Basile vibes from 45, but again, at the end of the day, like, there's not much to really gauge from this. Then we get, like, voiceover from Anika, I believe, who says that this is the most important chapter of her life. And then we follow that up with Teeny saying that Survivor is a blank page right now, which I will say, just in general, like, how did they get all these confessionals of people making, like, page / like, book references in relation to Jeff's previous monologue? But Teeny is someone that I am pretty excited to see on this season. I know they're a massive super fan of the show, someone that has been in the online community quite a bit, so I think their presence here will be a lot of fun. We get Jerome, who is someone that I think is one of the more promoted players here, where, again, he gets a generic confessional about wanting to be a big name player, but again, like, he's in the new promos that are coming out more recently. Again, obviously he's highlighted here. He got content in the new promo that's coming out, to where, again, I think Jerome is someone that is being a bit highlighted, and just in general, I feel like he's someone that I would expect to do well on this season. He seems like a person that would do well, at least initially, within the new era. Then we get Sierra, who actually ends up getting one of the few confessionals with actual personal content in this preview, which is a bit strange. Her talking about how she's usually the underdog because she's Miss Delaware, because I guess that makes you an underdog, but instead she's a big dog. And again, like, it's not much. And this was a preview that really did not provide much from a actual personal standpoint, but they decided to give her personal content. That's something. And then obviously we got John Lovett, who is obviously the most notable figure of this cast. Straight up did not know who he was before the season, but again, a lot of people do. With him being a well-renowned podcaster, again, like, he's, I guess, a big name out there. And again, he seems like he's going to be a fun personality here. He's definitely the most promoted person of this cast. Again, he gets a lengthy lengthy confessional here. He is also highly promoted in the previews, and he does give a lot of like David Wright energy here in his instant talk about how he has no outdoor skills and he threw up while camping as a Cub Scout. And again, like I think Jon Lovett is kind of on that trajectory. Again, if he does well, I think he'll be the David Wright. If he doesn't, he's probably just won the first few boots. And to be honest, I kind of lean towards that being the case. I mean, I don't know, Jon Lovett's someone that I have particularly high hopes for on this season. Yeah, definitely someone that, again, theoretically should have a lot of potential here, but I'm not really expecting it to go well. But then we get to what is probably the most notable name for me, someone that I was personally excited to see on this cast, someone that I've been listening to on podcasts for years at this point, and that is A'ja Welsh, who, I mean, to be fair, barely in this preview, but does get one line saying that she's ready to forge her own path. But again, I'm really excited to see A'ja here. If you do not know, she is obviously a podcaster from RJP. I feel like she typically podcasts more so about Big Brother than Survivor, but again, still, someone that, again, super exciting to see her here. I'll be honest, in terms of chances on this season, I'm a bit middling on her. I do feel like she's someone that, again, clearly feels very well-rounded in most aspects, someone that seems athletic enough, someone that obviously knows the game, knows the show, does come off as very intellectual. However, I feel like she's like the type of person that gets booted like mid-merge on most given new era seasons, someone that's eventually looked at as too big of a threat. So again, I definitely do have some questions about how she's going to do on the season. Yeah, I do think she's someone that obviously I'm very excited to see here. I know we do get another lengthier confessional from TK with him saying that he wants to be the fastest and strongest person here, and he wishes that they had a bench press, which obviously characterizes him as someone that's going to be there for challenges. I do feel like TK to me seems like someone that's probably going to be playing too hard, too fast, and again, probably will be saved relatively early on due to his physical strength. I do feel like he's someone that I'm not looking at as a deep contender. Out there we get more personal content from Sue, talking about being 59 and she'll beat all of their asses, being the oldest person of this season, I believe, oldest person of the new era. Now, I know there's been some, again, questionable stuff on her social media, but again, Sue, some of that, again, I could see being fun TV, but also, again, a bit unsure on her in the grand scheme of things. Then we also get content from Genevieve saying that she's going to blaze her own path or burn down the island, where, again, another generic confessional there, though Genevieve does seem like someone that, again, is at least going to be there to play the game. Again, I think I'll keep my eye on her as a potential winner pick. And we end the preview with, I believe, Andy doing voiceover, saying that has to be victory or glory in death, which, again, another generic confessional, but Andy's someone that I am pretty excited to see here as well. Again, another person that's a prominent fixture on the online community, been a big RTP patron for years, and someone that, again, clearly will know the show, someone that, again, seems perfectly poised to do well on this season. Again, kind of the perfect age for Survivor at 31. Also, seemingly well-rounded. So again, we'll see. But again, I do have high hopes for Andy there. Now, through this trailer, there are a couple people that we did not get to see. And as I mentioned before, there's one person that we still don't know entirely from this cast, that person being Caroline. So we do have a shot of her from a promo, but outside of that, know nothing about her. Beyond that, we have Tiana, who I believe was the female alternate for Survivor 46. So where, again, if you're an alternate on Survivor at this point, I feel like you're pretty much guaranteed to make it on the show in the next cycle. As again, it feels like that's been a constant trend in recent seasons, is that people that make it on end up being alternates from previous seasons. Though beyond that, again, we got really nothing from the likes of Kashawn, Kyle, Rachel, Sam, and Solomon. But overall, again, like, it was a fine trailer. 47, obviously better than 46's, which was just terrible. But again, it's a trailer that didn't really make me that excited for the season. But I do think, looking at the cast on the offset, I do look at this cast as one that I'm pretty excited to see play out, with there being some notable names here. Again, I'm excited to see how they play. Now, along with this, we do also have the tribes. Now, it's funny how, again, typically we would have something like Redmond release the tribes based on information that he had gathered, yet this time we got the tribes through the trailer, an analysis of the trailer, to where it's kind of weird how, again, it just feels like it's tougher to find information about Survivor seasons nowadays. But we got the Blue Tribe with Caroline, Gabe, Kyle, Sue, TK, and Tiana, a seemingly strong team here. I mean, I would say, like, I think this may be the strongest team of the bunch, where I feel like this is a team that I would not expect to go to many tribals. So I do think it's kind of tough to gauge how this tribe will play out, considering, again, like, we don't know anything about Caroline. I feel like Gabe is kind of a wild card, where who knows how he goes. I could see the likes of, like, TK and Kyle getting along, but really outside that, again, not really that much to say from this tribe. After we got the Red Tribe, having A'ja, Genevieve, Jerome, Kashawn, Solomon, and Teeny, where, again, we got to see 4 of these 6 in the trailer, especially considering, like, again, we only saw half these people in the trailer anyway. And again, I think this is a tribe that I'm probably the most excited for. I feel like there's a lot of people here that I am really interested in seeing how it plays out. I mean, again, A'ja Welsh is obviously on this tribe, Teeny is on this tribe, Jerome seems like someone that could be a good player, Genevieve seems like someone that's going to be playing hard. Again, we got nothing of Kashawn and Solomon yet. I would not be shocked if they're decent too, to where, again, I think this is a pretty interesting tribe. I don't know where this tribe necessarily goes in terms of who's like the automatic automatic first boot. I mean, if I were to guess, I think an initial alliance between like Asia, Jerome, and Teeny kind of makes sense to me. But outside of that, I don't know who I would necessarily predict to be the first boot of this tribe. And we got the Yellow Tribe, which again is another one that is interesting here. I mean, we've got John Lovett on this tribe, obviously. We got Andy on this tribe. Again, we didn't really get to see anything from the likes of Rachel or Sam, barely anything of Anika, literally just voiceover for her. So, again, another tribe that's a bit tough to digest. Though, again, I do feel like John kind of feels like he's on the outs here. I feel like he's someone that doesn't seem like he's going to gel into this group to where I do worry for him. Yeah, also in general, like feels like a strong tribe here. To where outside of John, it feels like everyone is seemingly someone that would be decent in challenges. So, again, maybe they'll do well. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I really have to say about 47. Now let's move on to 48, where again, we barely have a cast. And again, I think it's interesting the fact that we don't have a cast here. I mean, the fact that it is seemingly getting harder and harder to find these casts, where I know Redmond has said that online, that it's been hard for him to get information. And again, through that, it becomes pretty shocking here that we don't know the cast, considering, again, finished filming a decent chunk ago. Well, again, later than most typical seasons. Again, you would think by now we would know the bulk of this cast, at least like 15 of the 18. Yeah, again, we're only at the point where, at the time of this recording, we know 7, which is definitely a big drop off there. And really, outside of one, none of these people are particularly notable names. To where, again, does make me think that more than likely the other names are not that notable, considering you would think if they were, they would be out by now. So I do think this is going to be a, again, kind of standard, generic New Era cast, which, again, is fine. I do think the New Era has done very well with casting, even though, again, I do definitely have qualms with a lot of them being in very, like, similar current places in life. And again, with all of them being super fans, again, it can lead to some of these casts feeling a bit monotone. I do think as a whole, the casting has been very strong, to where I don't really have much doubts from that point of view. Though things to note here, I mean, first up, we do have the appearance of Xiaohin, this bearded guy that actually ends up being the alternate from 46. This guy that we heard a lot about in the preseason of that season. It was mentioned in many interviews, someone that was definitely getting on people's radars. And again, the fact that he's on this season, I think will be interesting. I don't think it'll go well. I mean, by the vibe that we got from him in 46, it did seem like he was making a massive target of himself in Ponderosa, to where it kind of felt like kind of Caleb-y to a degree. And the fact that I think he's someone that's just going to naturally be this massive target on the board. Yeah, again, should be fun to see how it goes, considering he does seem like a massive personality. But again, beyond that, there's not much else to really say. Again, we do know some of these people are like really big fans. Like Mitch is someone that I know I've seen pictures of with certain alumni. And again, it's just kind of what you would expect from New Era. I will say something strange about the specific people that we have released right now is the fact that they're all in their 30s, the majority of which seeming to be in very illustrious jobs. Or again, that aspect that kind of fits in line with New Era. But still, I do think that is maybe a minor worry. I mean, again, at the end of the day, this is only 7 of the 18 people. Again, for all we know, literally everyone else has a radically different background, radically different ages. But I do think it is, again, definitely worrying that the 7 people that we know right now are all within the same age range and all have, again, somewhat similar occupations. So, again, obviously the entire cast is not going to be like this, but I think the fact that we got 7 cast members right away and they're all of the same age, I think that is a little bit of a worry that it might be, again, maybe half the cast. Though, again, at the end of the day, I would rather have this, like, slightly older cast, the majority of people being in the 30s, than it skewing a lot younger, where again, for me, I think the perfect age to play Survivor is in your 30s. I think that's when you're confident enough to approach the game in a lot more interesting of a way, in a more confident way, and I think through that, at least a more interesting gameplay. And again, I do think having a cast in your 30s, again, is better than having a majority of your cast in your 20s. Yet, I do think still, having a bulk of the cast being around the same age range is, again, a bit worrying, but again, I don't think this is how the cast will fully play out once it's fully released. But anyway, with that, those are pretty much my thoughts on the 48 cast. Obviously, not much to say, because there's nothing to say. But now let's get into the more general thoughts about the current state of Survivor, and the fact that I actually feel pretty good about the current state of Survivor, where I actually think this might be the most confident I feel about the series post New Era, where obviously after 41 and 42, there was a lot of question marks on where the series was going, and after 43 and 44, while in retrospect I don't like those seasons, I feel like I came out of those seasons feeling a little bit better about the trajectory of the series, though still not particularly great, especially after we learned that we're still continuing on for a lot of the typical tropes of the New Era. Yet I think now, after seeing 45 and 46, again, I feel pretty good about the upcoming seasons. I do think 45 and 46 were a massive step in the right direction. Now, again, at the end of the day, yes, are we still going to keep with the 3 tribes of 6 and Mergatory and all these other New Era tropes that have continued on for seasons now? Yes, sadly. But I do think in most other aspects, the show is, again, kind of learning how to perfect that formula, where obviously the 90-minute episodes, I think, is a major step in the right direction. I think not just because we're getting more time to show the players and dynamics of the game, but also because it gives them a bit more freedom to do other things. To where, again, I do feel pretty confident we're going to get swaps moving forward. I think a reason why we got a swap in 45 but not in 46 is because, again, they knew they had 90-minute episodes. They knew they had the time to do what they typically want to do in a new era, but also focus on new dynamics that are set up through the swap. Where in 46, obviously they didn't know that they were going to have 90-minute episodes. I think that's kind of why they held back there, to where, again, moving forward, I would expect there to be swaps. Again, I'm excited to see those back. The auction's obviously something that came out for 45. I would very much expect it to be in at least one of 47, 48. Now, again, I think there's also some worries with 90-minute episodes, and the fact that obviously we saw like the Kendra Boot episode where we had like an extremely convoluted there. I would not be shocked if we do something like that on these upcoming seasons, where I think that's one of the few times that 46 actually did it a bit better through obviously just not having users be able to lose their votes in the Mega Challenge. But still, I do think as a whole, again, I feel pretty good about the current state of the show. Though something I do think is a bit strange is the fact that we have no twist information out there currently, where I believe seasons in the past, before the season aired, again, Redmond would release some sort of twist that was involved. Again, in 41, 42, obviously, we got a lot of stuff around the new format changes for New Era. But again, even with like 44, we knew about the birdcage before the season aired. With 45, we knew about twists that didn't even make air in episode 1 of someone from the winning tribe getting to watch the loser's tribal. So again, it feels like typically there is this like new twist that we know in the preseason, yet here we don't. And I feel like that is a bit strange that we don't. Though again, I fully expect there to be something to that nature. So again, I would be very surprised if Survivor doesn't try something new with either of these 2 seasons here. Yeah, I think the fact that we don't see any of that, we haven't heard of any of that, I think is a bit of a surprise to me. But again, as a whole, I do feel very confident about the current direction of the show, where I do think production is kind of back in the right direction, to where while I definitely disagree with Jeff in many ways that he looks at the game as Survivor, again, at least he is someone that is extremely passionate about the show. And I do think he's going to stick by the show. I think that is something that is like kind of out there, people thinking that he's going to quit the show. I think Jeff is there for a bit more. If I were to guess, I would say Jeff probably retires at 60, maybe. So where again, I think there's no indication that he's going to quit immediately. Though he has, for the first time in a recent podcast, mentioned who he would like to be a successor, talking about wanting his successor to be someone that is on the creative side and would essentially be able to fulfill his role of being executive producer along with host, where through that, again, I would not expect it to be some big name celebrity. I would expect to be maybe even someone like moving up within production or possibly even an alumni. But even then when he talked about that, again, it very much felt like for long term, not for immediate future, to where again, I would expect him to be around until around Survivor 60 personally. And again, with that, I do also want to talk about 49 and 50, as again, they are somewhat close. Again, within a year from now, Survivor 50 will have probably already filmed by that point, which is going to be insane to think about. Though I do want to talk about some more predictions. Where obviously I did a Survivor 50 early speculation video, and I will be doing a cast speculation video, again, probably at the beginning of next year. That will be this like really big deep dive into every single person that I think would have a semblance of a chance at returning. Though again, here I do want to talk about kind of more updated thoughts from my early speculation video, talking about how I think the season's going to play out at this point, to where, again, at the time, I did say that I think they were going to stick with 3 tribes of 6. I will say at this point, I do actually feel less confident about that. I do think at this point, I'm kind of looking at Survivor 50 being probably 2 tribes of 10, if I were to guess. I do think by the way that Survivor 50 has been marketed as the first all-star season of the new era, I do very much feel like they're going to try to do a lot of first within 50. And if I were to guess, I would say it's going to be the first season with 2 tribes. Now, along with that, obviously comes the fact that I do fully expect 49 to be 3 tribes of 6. I do think they'll keep that formula throughout the entire pre-50 new era seasons, though I would expect there to be 2 tribes of 10 on Survivor 50, where I would not be shocked if we go back to like the Survivor Cambodia sort of format of starting off with 2 tribes of 10, swapping into 3 tribes. That's kind of the trajectory I see the pre-merge playing out in 50. Though again, also I did mention the concept of Ghost Island being utilized in 50. And again, I would still not be that shocked if that were the case. I do think there's definitely a possibility that they would do that. Because again, I do think they want to do something big for 50. Not necessarily from a casting standpoint, but I think from a more season-wide standpoint. And I do think having, again, this bigger cast with a purge at the beginning with Edge of Extinction kind of fits in line with that. I just, again, don't know how they fit that into a 26-day season, to where, again, I do feel less confident in that notion, but I would not be shocked if that is something that Jeff definitely brings up as a potential idea for 50, considering that's an idea he pitched literally over 10 years ago at this point. But also, again, there's also this notion out there that people are thinking that 49 might be a returnee season to lead into 50, 49 being second chance, 50 being legends. I will shut that down right away. That's not happening. 0% chance it happens. Again, a lot of the branding around 50 is that is the first all-star season in the new era, there's not going to be an all-star season for 49. It will 100% be newbies. I would very much be shocked if there's any semblance of returnees on 49. I do think they want to make 50 itself a very special season. However, I do think it's going to be very weird how it's presented, where, as I mentioned before, I do fully expect it to just be Survivor 50. I do not think there will be a specific theme for the season. I think it will be a general all-star season named Survivor 50. Again, obviously predominantly new era, but not entirely. Again, I think probably like 2/3 of the cast new era. Definitely some people from the late 30s. I think probably an old schooler here or there. I do think there will be winners involved personally. I know a lot of people want second chance. I would not expect it, though. I would expect most of the cast to be somewhat similar to it, to be honest. Again, I do think there will be winners involved. I think Marianne, Jam Jam, Dee are people that I very much look at as people that would be on this. Even if we're going old school, I think someone like Earl Cole is someone to definitely mention here as a potential returnee, because they've literally wanted him back for every other returnee season in recent years. Now, again, I don't expect legends of the game to be on this season. I would not expect Boston Rob, Parvati, Tony, even though he's probably the most likely of those three. Again, winners at war people just in general, I would not fully expect here, though. Again, I could definitely see someone like Natalie Anderson in particular being in consideration, Wendell, Michelle Fitzgerald. Again, I think there are definitely people that will be in consideration for winners at war, but I would not expect it. Again, I do think this is going to be, again, a season more in line with something like Game Changers, though maybe a little bit more balanced in the sense that I do think they very much recognize the issue they had with Game Changers and how imbalanced that cast was. So again, I do think there'll probably be like 4 winners on this cast, keeping in line with the likes of what Game Changers was supposed to be, but also there's villains. I do think they'll also keep with predominantly new era. Though again, I do think there'll be some old schoolers in consideration. Again, Jeff literally said that he wants Survivor 50 to be a celebration of the series, and I feel like for it to be a celebration of the series without at least like one old schooler in there feels very strange. To where again, I would expect old schoolers to be in the running here. And sadly, I would not be shocked if like a fourth of the cast are people that we haven't even seen play Survivor yet. I do think there's definitely a serious shot of us getting a couple returnees from both 47, 48, probably one returnee from 49. So again, that already makes up 5 of the returnees for 50. Now, I would expect there to also be decent focus on the likes of 45 and 46, considering they're essentially like the new hotness right now. I feel like they're kind of in like the Cagayan spot coming into second chance, so where again, I would definitely expect a lot of 45, 46 to be in consideration as well. I know they love the casts of 42 and 44. So again, I would definitely expect a lot of considerations from those seasons. I don't know how many of them are going to make the cut at this point, but I do think there'll definitely be a lot of considerations there. 43, again, I think there's definitely the big names in Jesse, Carla, Cody. I do not expect anyone else from those seasons personally. And straight up, I would not be shocked that they just completely skip out on 41. I do think 41 is a season that I do not see them being super high on. I don't think it's a cast that they held in that high regard. So I think definitely out of that cycle, they were a lot more happy with 42 than they were 41. And considering, again, we've heard questionable things about Shan and her relationship production, I do not know how likely 41 returnees are going to be yet. Again, I would fully expect there to be, again, people from David vs. Goliath in particular of the older school seasons, plus Rick Devens, because Rick Devens is obviously going to be there. But again, I'll be shocked if Christian's not on 50. I do think Angelina and Davey and Gabby are definitely people going to be in consideration. I do think, obviously, Dominic, Chrissy are people that never got shots to come back. I would not be shocked that they're in the running. Even going back to like Jay from Millennium Gen X, I think he'll probably be consideration. And again, there'll probably be other people scattered across Survivor history. So again, I think there will be a pretty wide reach for 50. I do expect there to be an availability call to a good chunk of names. I do think this is how they kind of like to operate nowadays. Well, I'm too fair, they've always operated that way, but I think nowadays in particular, Jeff has specifically mentioned the concept of him not liking to be limited when developing their season. I do think they're definitely going to reach out to anyone they have a semblance of interest in casting here, to where I do think there'll be a wide net. And straight up, I think we're probably going to be hearing about some of the people in consideration by the end of this year, where I think we're at the point now where availability calls, if not are already out, I think are definitely going to be out soon. Or while obviously 50 won't be filming for another like 9 to 10 months, the cast will probably be finalized around like March or April of next year, and they obviously have to do all the finals interviews. And again, I fully expect availability calls to be, if not out already, be coming out pretty soon. I would not be shocked if before my cast speculation video even comes out, we'll have a decent chunk of names already talked about as people in consideration. But again, that's pretty much what I have to say for this video. Again, just kind of a rundown of the 47 cast, brief thoughts on the 48 cast, kind of just a general overview of my thoughts on the immediate future of Survivor. Now, moving forward, I mean, obviously, again, the 47 cast will probably be released in a couple weeks, so where I will be doing cast assessment of that. Obviously, a massive review and player ranking of that when that season ends. as I mentioned, I will be doing a big Survivor 50 cast speculation video, probably beginning of next year. I would not be shocked if it's at the end of this year, but I would say beginning of next year to be safe. Beyond that, again, I'm also continuing off my updated casting videos, where again, those are essentially me casting seasons under the guise of them being Survivor 50, to where, again, if you want to get my thoughts on who could potentially be brought back for 50, but before that cast speculation video comes out, then man, you can watch those videos when they come out, or you can watch them now or a bit sooner whenever I finish any of them, where I might as well plug this while we're here. Again, I do have a $5 membership tier where that will allow you to gain early access to videos, where, again, I work on a bevy of videos well before they come out, where I'm currently in the process of editing a whole bunch of videos I've previously recorded, where there'll be a lot more added there over the next month or so, to where, again, if you want to join, cool. If you don't, then again, the videos will come out eventually anyway. But beyond that, we got BB26 currently airing. Obviously, I will be doing a mid-season power ranking of that within the next couple weeks. Not 100% locked in on when exactly, but again, somewhat soon. And obviously, there'll be a season review and player ranking along with that. Obviously, Challenge 40 just started, to where I'll be doing a review of that when that season ends, probably at the end of the year. And if you want to keep up with my thoughts on everything else going on, you can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/TheMarine where I stream every Wednesdays and Sundays at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Or you can catch the VODs on my VOD channel, which is also in the description. So anyway, as of right now, those are all my thoughts on Survivors 47 and 48 and 49 and 50. So thank you for watching.